in verse 12 we read, it is those who want to make a good showing in the flesh, right, who would force you to be circumcised, and only in order that they may not be persecuted for the cross of Christ, end quote. The Greek word for force in this verse, anankadzo, carries the idea of compulsion by force or threat if necessary. Look at footnote number 165 in my notes, points to the Thayers and Smith's Bible dictionary on that word, anankadzo. And we've seen this word again, as I say in my notes, in our studies, twice earlier in this letter, at Galatians 2:13 and again at Galatians 2:14, where Peter is trying to force the Gentiles to live as if they're Jews, right? Why do you force the Gentiles to live like, Jews, to take on a Jewish lifestyle? Why are you compelling them with your social position as a leader in the community? Paul knows what this word anankadzo means, because if you recall in my notes I say Paul was guilty of compelling Christians to blaspheme before he himself came to believe in Yeshua as Messiah of Israel. Look at footnote number 166. My references to Acts 26:11. In his testimony, he testifies that he himself was guilty of using this social tool of social pressure, of forcing Christians, trying to compel them to blaspheme Yeshua. Of course, I say in my notes, context shows that it's not always wrong to try to compel someone to do a particular thing. For instance, of the 9 times I looked up this word in the Greek, of the 9 times that it's found in the Greek in the Apostolic Scriptures, only 4 of those times does this context seem to indicate compulsion to do something wrong. If we look at footnote number 167, I listed all the references there, going from Matthew, Mark, Luke, into the book of Acts, 2 Corinthians, and then here in Galatians as well. This Greek word anankadzo, this compulsion. So you can compel someone to do something right, you can compel someone to do something wrong. And Paul's saying that these influencers, the point I'm trying to make in my notes here by bringing this verse up, is that as far as the influencers were concerned, I say at the bottom of the page, the Gentiles were not being given really a choice in the matter. It was kind of like the Judaizers were saying, look, if you want to receive the blessings of God, if you want to receive the protection of the people group of Israel, the exemptions that we receive from Rome, to be able to hold our own worship services, be exempt from the emperor worship, to receive a measure of protection within the Roman Empire itself, the Roman government, as well as receive favor from the leaders in Israel, then you're going to have to take on legal Jewish status and be willing to declare yourselves as Jews, legally recognized from our perspective, which means physical circumcision. And so, otherwise, it was kind of like it's our way or the highway, right? It's my way or the highway, and that's why I think that's why they were being forced in that sense. They weren't really being threatened at pains of death to be circumcised. I mean, they were given a choice in the matter. But the social pressure of, hey, look, if you want all of that we've got to offer, here's what you got to do. That kind of thing. I think that's what's going on. Circumcision, I say in the bottom of the page there, circumcision was being presented as the exclusive entry point into covenant Israel, and Paul was seeking to set the record straight once and for all by correctly demonstrating, we're near the top of page 177 now, by correctly demonstrating from the Torah itself that God reckons a person righteous not by their ethnic status, but by their position of faith in the risen Christ. Of course, Paul's going to flesh this out in more detail in his letter to the Romans in, say, Romans chapter 4, where he uses Abraham as an example, David as an example. He talks about how that Abraham was counted as righteous before he was circumcised, things like that. Paul's letter to the book of Galatians, he doesn't spend a lot of time on that. He's short and to the point, but he doesn't flesh out the theology like he does in Romans chapter 4 for us.